Hi everyone, welcome to Blackhat USA 2023. I'm Tushar Kulkarni. I'm going to present vAPI, which is a vulnerable API. If you are an API security enthusiast, an API developer, or a security engineer, you might find this tool interesting. APIs rule a major percent of internet traffic today, thus it makes them the number one attack surface for hackers. And I'm not saying it. Reports published over the years are. So come learn about vAPI and how it can help you learn about API security. Before we start on the vAPI, a little bit about me. I'm Tushar Kulkarni from India. Currently, I'm a graduate student at Indiana University Bloomington in the secure computing track. I'm also a SYNAC red teamer where I try to find vulnerabilities on SYNAC programs. Previously, I have given talks and trainings at numerous conferences such as Blackhat Europe, AtHack, HITB, OWASP events, and many more. You can find everything about me on roottusk.com. The recently published Firetail report mentioned that authentication and authorization controls are the major attack vectors in a breach event of an API, followed by events like configuration issues, injection, governance, enumeration, and brute force. The API Secure report quoted that according to the Crunchbase database, venture capitalists have raised around $578 million for companies that identify themselves as API security solutions. This can be like API security scanners and whatnot. Also, according to a report by Gardner in 2017, API abuses would be the most frequent attack vectors, resulting in data breaches for enterprises' web applications. The same report was quoted again by Gardner in Gartner Predicts, and it's not a lie. We have seen countless data breaches this year. Microsoft Exchange, Crypto.com, WordPress, Email Template Designer, to name a few, out of which some may be related to API security misconfigurations. More awareness about API security is our best armor against such threats, hence vAPI. We have also seen software industry move towards modern web application architectures, which include MERN and mean stack, where essentially an API connects the front end and the database. Twenty 2023 also saw a release of a new OWASP API Top 10 vulnerabilities by OWASP. You can go ahead and check out the project to learn more about top 10 most common vulnerabilities in APIs. Before we jump on the project updates, a little bit about vAPI. vAPI is a lab-like environment where users can learn about and exploit API security vulnerabilities. Though it primarily focuses on API top 10 vulnerabilities, I continuously try and improve it and add more challenges to it so there are more number of vulnerabilities in it. If you are a pen tester or a security engineer, you can test out your pen testing skills on the lab and solve the vulnerabilities to get a flag. Since the lab is like a CTF, like once you complete a challenge, it will give you a string flag once you exploit the vulnerability. You will get to learn about the basic security vulnerabilities occurring in REST API since it is designed like a REST API. If you happen to be a developer, you can have a look at my intentionally vulnerable written code, which can act as a reminder of not to do things next time you are making or baking an API. You can also think of possible ways to fix the issue by looking at the vulnerability in the vAPI. I had presented vAPI at Blackhat Europe 2022 Arsenal last year. Thanks to the calls for tools team to consider this year as well for Blackhat USA 2023. Since last year, there have been a lot of changes to the vAPI platform. We have added 3 new exercises in the arena section related to JWT token, SSRF, and cross-site scripting, and more are on the way. We have also added Kubernetes support for vAPI. Thanks and shout out to Andy G0. We have added endpoint to check if the submitted flag is correct, and the vAPI flag submission dashboard is on the way. Feel free to use this platform for your security trainings, workshops, and talks. For technology stack, we have used Laravel, MySQL for primary application code. PHP is still a great language to make CTF challenges and demonstrate security vulnerabilities, and MySQL as a database really goes along well with it. We have also Dockerized the whole application so you don't really have to take care of manually doing everything. You can run one command and your vAPI instance should be up and running. Recently, we also added support for Kubernetes, so there is no hassle for upscaling or downscaling your instance. Installation of vAPI should be simple for an average user. We have three ways to install or start a vAPI instance: manual, Docker, or Kubernetes. My personal favorite is the Docker, where you can ensure you have Docker and Docker Compose binaries in your system, and then you can go ahead and run Docker Compose up -d, which should start the vAPI without any problem. If you like to tweak around like me, you can try manual installation by editing the .env file in the project and add the correct database information there. Then import the database and then run the php artisan serve command, which is the standard command to start the Laravel server. If you want to run it through Kubernetes, which I am very little known to, you can run the mention command, which should start the vAPI node, I believe. If you run into any trouble or issues, please feel free to post it on the GitHub project repo issues, and I will try and make sure to take a look at it. vAPI comes with a Postman collection and a Postman environment. You will need a Postman tool to look at all the exercises and the REST API calls. We have also made the Postman collection in such a way that after sending a request for creating a user in a challenge, you don't need to manually go and copy the authentication token or the authorization token for that user. It gets automatically added to the next API call in that specific exercise through Postman test scripts and Postman environment that vAPI has. There's a not so official open API documentation available on /vAPI endpoint on the instance on which you are running the application. It can also give you a good idea about the API calls. Since I like application security and I used to be a pen tester, I like to use MITM proxy tools such as Burp Suite or vAPI. So you can also use MITM proxies to solve CTF challenges. So you can also use vAPI or Burp Suite to solve the challenge. It's not entirely necessary, but may aid you for solving challenges which need extra decoding or brute forcing. Some challenges in vAPI can be quickly solved with the help of such tools. Let's quickly have a look at one or two vulnerabilities from the vAPI. Here I have the vAPI Postman collection loaded, where I can go ahead and create a user. If I go to the body of this specific request, you can see there are fields that you need to fill and it would create a user. Since first challenge focuses on broken object level authorization, we can go ahead and create a new user and check out how the request goes. Before I go ahead and send the request, I'll also like to introduce you to the Postman environment for vAPI, which is here. You can see the variable host has been set the current value to vapi.rootdesk.com, which is our remote instance we are using for testing vAPI. I can go ahead and show you the instance. So this is my instance. If I go to the /vAPI endpoint, it will give me the open API documentation available for vAPI. You can use this documentation and maybe download it to run a scanner against it, or yeah, I've used the tool Redocly for generating this OpenAPI documentation, and it might not be up to date. I would also like to focus on OWASP API security project, which publishes the OWASP API top 10 vulnerabilities uh, every few years. So this is the list of OWASP API top 10 2023. vAPI tool is mostly based on OWASP API security top 10 2019, which was released in 2019. I plan to align it with the new popular API vulnerabilities according to OWASP API top 10 2023 as well. If you are, if you feel, if you want to contribute to the vAPI project, you can go ahead and start submitting. Uh, you can clone it and do a pull request for the new version of the vAPI, which will be following the 2023 OWASP API top 10. So we can have a new release that can have newer vulnerabilities. I'll go now to my Postman. Before sending the request, I'll also go to the settings and show you that I've hooked this Postman tool to my burp suite. So you can see in the proxy server, I've written 127.0.0.0.1, which is my localhost IP, and port 8080 on which my burp suite listener is running. So any request that I send will be sent through the burp suite MITM proxy. I'll go ahead and clear the requests that were already there so we can have a clear start. So let's go ahead and focus on our first vulnerability, that is broken object level authorization. Let's go ahead and create a user. I'm creating a user called root task. The name would be Tushar, and the course that we'll be enrolling in would be API Security 101. The password is a dummy password that I've set. If I click on send, it should create the user. We can see the user has been assigned the ID 6 and the user has been created. There's a Postman test script which will pass the request and the response and accordingly populate the Postman environment variables. You can see the API1 authentication token has been populated, which is essentially the base64 encode for username and password. Here you can see the format. It's username colon password and the base64 encoding of the whole string. The same authorization token or authentication token would be used in the next request. So we don't need to go and change or add anything. It's already there in the headers, the host, the URI, or the parameter. So I'll just go ahead and click on send button, and you can see we are able to retrieve the information that we had created. Let's go ahead and have a look at this request in our burp suite. I believe this is the request through which we are able to get the information for the user that we have created. I'll send it to the repeater and send it again, and yes, we are indeed able to do it. If I change the ID for the user to, let's say, 4, I should be able to view information for another user. This vulnerability is essentially broken object level authorization, where I can tamper with the request and change object specific IDs, and I'm able to read information of another user. Now if I change it to the ID1, which usually is the admin user or the first user, I get a flag which says flag API1. That means I've solved this vulnerability and I've understood it. This flag can be verified by the new endpoint that we have created for checking if the flag is correct. The endpoint can be implemented into a CTF dashboard to make this vAPI into a CTF, into an actual CTF. So this was our first vulnerability. I'll go ahead and maybe have a look at another vulnerability from the arena section. Let's go ahead and check the server surfer. If I send the request, it allows me to browse another URL through the vAPI instance, so it acts like a proxy. If if I'm correct, I have this request here in the Bob suite intercepted. I'll go and send this request to the repeater. Let's change this to google.com and see if we are able to retrieve the response from google.com. And we are. That means the proxy that is here, it's working. What if I try to change the schema from HTTPS to, let's say, something like file, and let's add something like a trailing Linux slash. So the third slash that you are seeing is the root of the Linux directory. If I try something like flag, let's see what happens. I get an internal server error. If I try flag.txt, I get some data. I'll send this string to the decoder and decode it as base64, since I see a trailing equal to sign, and I can assume it's something like a base64 encoded string. And there we have it, our flag for SSRF vulnerability. I would request you to go ahead and check out other exercises by yourself by cloning the vAPI, and have a look at the other vulnerabilities by yourself. These are some fun and exciting vulnerabilities. The API 3 also requires the mobile application testing. Some of them require brute force, some of them require writing scripts to log in your way in. So I would suggest you go ahead and check these exercises on your own. Coming to the end of the demo, a big thanks to all the contributors of this project and the newsletters and the blogs for helping this project reach to a bigger number of people. You can additionally check the mentioned links such as Mind API, Awesome API Security, OWASP Vulnerable Web Application Directory. The vAPI tool is also being used by API University, which provides some good API security certifications. You can also check out the Try Hack Me room for vAPI. Yeah, and these are some of the contributors of the vAPI project. Thanks and shout out to everyone. Once again, thank you so much for joining my talk. Feel free to shoot if you have any questions for me, or you can reach out to me on at vk_tushar on Twitter, or you can email me directly here. You can check rest of the information on my website available. Thank you so much, everyone.